Thanks, Tom. Actually, I am the interim director of operations support, safety and security at TriMet.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. No problem. I've been with TriMet for 30 years. Started as a bus driver and have managed our operations control center and training out of rail for a number of years. Served on a number of the safety committees. I chair the Fire Life Safety Committee for not only the yellow line, but the green line, but also the extension to Milwaukee and to Clackamas, the Columbia River Crossing. I've also served on our Transit Change Review Committee, in fact, since its inception of rail, about the last 15 years. So I have a lot of experience throughout the agency, both on the bus and the rail side. I think what our plan is, Tom, sorry to you, Josh and I have kind of broken up how we're going to go through the report. And Josh will start with the introduction and then I'll jump in.
Thanks, Dennis. And again, yes, I'm the manager of communications, so I'll give back that promotion. I am in operations, and one of my primary roles is to make sure that we're keeping our front line and operational employees informed of things going on in the district for internal communications. Obviously, right now, safety is a key factor. A number of the things we'll talk about in this report and a lot of the follow-up actions we will talk about as things that we are implementing, and bear in mind that we have some 1,200 or 1,300 operators and then supervisors and many employees within operations to whom we need to communicate many of these changes to. It's a very large organization. At a later meeting, we will give you somewhat of a primer on how we are structured and how that kind of will show you some of the challenges that we have within TriMet, which will be an interesting discussion at a later time. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read the Phase 1 report from K&J Consulting, who we retained. They are, Jim Tucci is the principal of K&J Consulting. He is, and they are primarily affiliated with the National Safety Council. They've done a great deal of work around the country, and in fact, at the same time as they're working on our evaluation, they have been in D.C. working with WMATA on their top-to-bottom review. And if you've been paying attention to transit news, they have a great deal of challenges in D.C. and they've been splitting time between D.C. and here, so they're sorry they could not be here today. However, a representative from K&J will be here on August 11th when we anticipate presenting to you the Phase 2 report. In the introduction and kind of opening parts of this Phase 1 safety review, K&J found a number of things, and overall, the reviewers found that TriMet has many safe and secure operating practices and procedures. The report was very complimentary in a number of areas, but I think the areas that will be most interesting to many people are the areas in which they were not complimentary but may have been constructive in providing us criticism and observations on areas of which we could improve upon. As Tom and Neil and everyone has said, that safety is never something you rest upon or something you feel like, well, good, we're safe now, and that is, now we're on to other things. Some of the things that they found that overall, they commended us on our commitment to safety and security and the high service standards that we have both on bus and rail operations. One of their quotes is that TriMet safety programs are appropriate and equal to or exceed the typical programs at other agencies of its size or service type. So they looked at us and tried to provide us feedback in context of other transit agencies within the industry. They found that there were opportunities to enhance, and Dennis and I will talk about those. Just to give you a sense, the recommendations were broken into categories, as you would have seen in the report. They looked closely at training, our policies and procedures. They looked closely at some of our key safety documents, like our system safety program plan, which Dennis will talk about, which is an industry standard document, as well as looking at some innovative tools that other systems are using across the country that many of them have not had an opportunity for evaluation such that they could be called truly a best practice yet, but they are new tools that early experience is showing they do have the potential for significant benefit to the public in regards to safety. So they outlined a number of those and encouraged TriMet, along with our partners such as the city, other local jurisdictions, to look closely at those. At a subsequent meeting to this, we will go into further detail on some of those innovative tools, but we will cover them with specific to how K&J would cover them in this study. So Dennis, I think I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. So the next segment is bus operator training and procedures. And reviewers found that the bus operator training was superior in many ways. For instance, it included excellent classroom and road training program with good hands-on and situational response training. But there were some things that they wanted to point out to us. So although our bus operators do receive annual training, they wanted to see us create that as a certification training, not just training. So right now we're looking at how do we convert what we're currently doing as training or recertification or certification and turning that into a recertification program. They also talked about over-the-counter drugs and how they may potentially cause some impairment. Right now we do require that safety-sensitive employees do disclose medications, but there is no requirement for when there is a potential of having different combinations of medication, how that might affect them. So we're asking to have that included as well. Bus operators are asking that one of the things we look at is having them carry their rules and procedures with them. And so we're looking at how do we make a portable type of rule book or procedures manual that they can carry with them. So we're in the process of getting that done at this point. They also said that they wanted us to look at how we can more clearly state to operators how they can expect to be notified and be accountable for updates for the procedures and rules that are issued. And we do have a number of procedure practices for issuing those rules and procedures. And what we need to do is formalize that process. So we're in the doing that. There's also something they pointed out was that the requirement for operators to report convictions of DUIs to station management within 24 hours. And there is a current requirement to do so, but there is no stated timeline, so we're going to change that as well. And then another thing that we're looking at is how we convey verbal information from our dispatchers to our operators. And rather than just having the operator say, okay, I copy that, we'll look at more positive feedback from the operator. Do they really understand what they're being told? Something like a word-for-word readback of what they're being told when they're giving verbal instructions. So we're looking at how we can implement that.
One of the procedures which has been talked about quite a bit in the public eye deals with distracted driving. And we have just been in the process, and this has been announced and talked to a fair amount of the public, that we are revising the procedures to specifically require that any portable electronic device that an operator may carry that is not work-related be actually stowed and turned off. We have previously had requirements that you're not allowed to have a cell phone visible in your ear. You're not allowed to have a Bluetooth earpiece. Whether you're using it or not, that has always been required to be stowed. But as in recent years, there have been a lot of high-profile incidents across the country involving texting. We know that the proliferation of these portable devices has increased just radically in recent years, and the need for transit agencies, including TriMet, has greatly arisen. So APTA, the American Public Transit Association, has been working on a standard to try and give generalized guidance to all transit properties so that there is a uniform approach to this universal issue. They issued their standard in January, and the advice counsel we got from K&J was to follow explicitly that APTA standard, which is what we have now done. And we are finalizing the language of a new procedure that would address not only portable electronics like MP3 players, cell phones, iPhones, video cameras, any device like that, but also other types of distractions. So we're addressing more explicitly conversations with customers or conversations with colleagues. Some of us have maybe been on buses and you get in on downtown and you're heading towards Center Street and you might see somebody up front talking with an operator the entire ride. There are distractions involved in that, and we really think that a professional, well-trained operator should be able to communicate briefly and concisely with customers and with colleagues about work-related issues. Many times customers need direction on how to find a transfer to a certain line or how to get to a destination. And we don't want to infringe upon our employees' ability to be good customer service providers. But we also want them to be very cognizant of the potential for distraction when having any kind of a conversation that might draw them away from their attention to the road. So we're addressing both what is called the operator-controlled distractions, the things of which they maybe carry on them, including eating. We're making it very clear that we know that operators have challenges sometimes consuming food and drinking water, especially when it's hot, and needing beverages, but we want to make it clear that that's not something you should be engaged in while you're actually moving your vehicle. So this is a new procedure. It's the elements of distraction have traditionally been broken up in a number of different procedures, and this will draw very clear attention to that. While distraction wasn't a factor, we believe in the accident of April 24th, it is a key critical element for us to address. So that is in the works, as well as a couple of other things that they noted. And some of these things, the contractors don't live in Portland, so some of their suggestions don't necessarily, like, they are good practices, but for example, one of them saying that we should never drive through water which is uncertain on how deep it is. And as you can imagine, there are a number of areas where all vehicles may be going where there are wide spans of water. And so our challenge is to take the good advice and best practices of K&J and decide how best do we implement them here. So a suggestion like that, I think what we really look at is try and remind in refresher training is what are the things you're going to want to look for when approaching a wide pool of water, rather than just blanketly say you can't pass through it because we won't be moving buses anywhere in our district. I think I'll turn it back to Dennis to talk about rail training.